Hello, Richard Tromans here at Artificial Lawyer TV. Today we're interviewing Simon Black, who used to be a partner at Allen Overy, the global law firm. Since leaving Allen Overy, he's launched a new startup called Lexical Labs, which is an NLP-driven review and negotiation tool. I thought it'd be very interesting to hear a bit about Simon's journey because, in truth, there are not that many senior equity partners from global law firms who have gone on to create a startup. So, hi, Simon. Thank you for joining
Hi,
us.
great to join.
So I guess the first question is, and briefly, I guess, because we could talk all day about this, but just very briefly, why did you go from being a senior manager, senior partner, and on the board of a very large law firm to helping to launch what is now a 10-person startup?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't always have the answer straight in my mind, but I mean, my background is I spent 23 years of my career with ANO in Asia, and we were very much around building businesses, particularly in mainland China and Japan. And my career always at 7 years involved a new challenge. And, we relocated back to the UK 3 years ago. And at that point, I said, look, I'm up for a new challenge. And I was very interested in legal tech. And I looked around at some of the companies involved and was very fortunate to meet up with the two co-founders, Liam and Will. One of them's a lawyer, the other's a technologist. So we immediately hit it off, and we had a common, vision, particularly around, making contract negotiation smoother than it should be.
But why? I mean, I can see the logic of the product, but why do this? So many partners just retire to Tuscany or travel the world or collect sports cars or whatever it is that turns them on, you know. Why did you not just hang up your spurs and say that's enough? Why? I mean, running a startup is not easy, as all startup founders will tell you. Why take this on now?
Yeah, it's a massive change and a big challenge, but it's something I was really up for, at the time. And I'm a great believer that you can work through it in a very long career, provided you reinvent yourselves. And so, in a nutshell, I was up for this. And of course, it's like a massive change that brings, challenges and opportunities.
What has been the biggest difference between operating as a founder of the startup and being a partner in a very large law firm? I imagine there's been a lot of differences, but if you could just
Yeah,
pick out a couple of the big
Yeah,
ones.
there are a lot. I mean, obviously, in a big law firm, you have an array of colleagues, any type of support that you really need. You're doing very complex, high pressure transactions. That was what I did, M&A and big finance. And in a startup, it's all hands in together. And and you've got to learn how to interact with customers, how corporate legal departments, procurement departments, how they operate on a day-to-day business. And this is something in a law firm often partners never see. We see the big deals. We don't see the machines working day-to-day in companies. So there's a massive learning curve for someone like me. And then also a big learning curve on the technology and how the technology is, possible. And finally, it's a young person's, business. You talk, your customers are often, in their 30s, very bright legal technologists, legal operations. Our colleagues are the same. And so all of that takes, a bit of adaptation to do. But I was lucky. I've always worked in different cultural environments with different cultures, age groups. So I found that actually was challenging. It was great fun.
And may I ask a slightly impolite question, but I think I have to ask because I think the viewers will be intrigued. How old are you now?
Yeah, so I'm now 53. So,
Oh, okay,
I
ah,
started
you're
on this. So,
spring
but
chicken.
I considered myself a young chicken.
Absolutely, I certainly would. I certainly would. So, okay. So, I mean, what did you learn at Allen Overy that you've been able to apply? Because I mean, it's not like you were part of the Fuse lab, you which is going
Yeah,
great
I was one of the old dinosaurs doing deals the old way.
with
Yeah.
pencil and paper and using carrier pigeons and all this kind of thing. I mean, I mean, you weren't part of that kind of the cool, trendy bits going off in London because you were out in China and Japan, etc. Um, what did you learn there that you've really been able to apply to doing this?
Yeah, so I mean, I think probably two things. The first thing is the power of listening. So
Mm,
a lot of what we do is we apply our technology to a customer's needs and we adapt it.
mm.
And a lot of that is listening, assimilating, and then finding a solution. So I think the power of listening is very important. The other thing is problem solving. And again, on a big deal, we break it down, and there are some, very routine bits which maybe had a technology solution to it, and there are some bits of it where actually the human brain is really the only solution. And we do the same in this thing, and we break down problems into component parts and find solutions at every level. And hopefully the walkthrough of the idea, emphasizes that the technology is important, but it's also how the human interacts with it and what sort of data they get, how they use that, and always the human, in control. So I think, problem solving where we're targeting, very top tier companies with quite complex contracts is a skill that certainly I really, developed whilst at the firm, and I still use.
Yeah, yeah, no, interesting, interesting. But I mean, I'm sure that your colleagues and friends at the firm and so forth, when you said, "Hey, I'm launching an NLP company," they probably went, "What's an NLP thingy? I have no idea what you're talking about." And secondly, as far as I remember, you never did computer science. Why on earth are you doing this? How are you even qualified to do this thing?
Yeah. Well, I think we have three sort of bits of the company, if you like. So, I tend to face the customers, understand their problems they're trying to solve, and help develop the solutions. Behind me or alongside me is a legal engineering
Hmm.
group of people that actually can work those systems, is that those solutions into our system. And then alongside them are the machine learning, NLP specialists and programmers that configure the system. And we all have to sort of work, together, and we all have a role in it. But if you're asking, yes, am I the person that's getting my hands dirty with a spanner in the system? The answer is no, but I'm very much involved in, designing the solutions that the system can provide.
Gotcha, gotcha. And another question that's probably slightly, possibly uncomfortable, but I think probably needs to be asked is, some people might say, well, look, if you've been a partner at Allen Overy for 20 plus years, you must be relatively wealthy. Is this for real? Are you throwing yourself at this in the same way that someone who was 23 might? Because, literally their whole future depends on this. If they screw up, they're going to have to go and get a job doing God knows what. But whereas you probably will be okay. You I mean, is that relevant
Yeah,
or?
I think it doesn't matter how old, young you are. I think if you're motivated by a sense of purpose, at every phase of your life, you can be as passionate and enthused about it. And that's always something that, for example, when I was in Japan with A&O, I was very motivated by the prospect of growing a really good client base of Japanese, corporates. And I have that sort of equal motivation in making a difference in the way companies are negotiating the contracts. And ultimately, we all want, I think, to have some degree of legacy. And I always think the legacy is really what you impart to your colleagues, and what you leave behind in terms of what customers think of you. And that really sort of still motivates me as much as it did in the law firm.
Fantastic, fantastic. So last thing, I mean, it sounds like you're having a great time, and you're also producing a good product. Um, what advice, or perhaps not necessarily advice, but what would you say to perhaps another partner at a law firm who's watching this, reaching the end of their career? Would you say, well, look, actually, I'm kind of the exception that proves the rule, and you probably all should go off and retire to Tuscany? Or would you say, actually, no, come on, everybody, this is a wonderful thing to do. You should all try it.
Well, I think if they're inspired by the possibilities around the product and the impact it's going to have, then definitely do it. I could never have done this alone. I've always been someone that's been a sort of like, motivated by being part of a team. And so maybe a bit of advice would be, if you have that partner background, you're going to have certain skills, but you're not going to have all of them in a way that somebody that's got a software background, computer science, will have more of it. So partnership, find the right people with the sort of shared vision. But ultimately, go for it. Absolutely. If that's what motivates and is going to get you up in the morning, then definitely do it.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, look, thank you very much, Simon. It's an inspiring story. There's life after 50, everybody. I certainly hope so, personally. So no, fantastic. Very good talking to you, and good luck with the project.
Yeah, it's great to be with you, Richard. Thanks for having me. So our solution addresses a problem that's well known. It's the review and negotiation around hundreds of thousands, if not more, commercial contracts each year, done mainly sort of in companies and enterprises. And so the problems are around the friction, the speed or lack of it, the frustration around the workflows, and also the fact that a lot of companies don't have access to actionable data or aren't using that data. So our solution essentially addresses that and has some flexible technology. As you said, there's some NLP and machine learning, but there's also rules-based technology. So I would sort of describe ourselves by analogy of a tool to quite precision-based tools like screwdrivers or lathes. And in contrast, I think, to some of the more jackhammer solutions, which are very effective about reviewing big portfolios of contracts. But what we're doing is reviewing and negotiating individual contracts, as they come in. So that has to be a sort of very precise, solution. So our sort of sweet spot is medium to high complexity commercial contracts, sales, procurement, services, SaaS, all of that. And what we seek to deliver is a user experience which reviews the contract, but also allows the user to action that contract, turn it around, edit it, report on it. And we are looking at contracts that are either high volume, lower complexity, or low volume, high complexity, but with, I think, sort of repeatable clauses, so boilerplate. And we work on, not only drafts created by the counterparty of the customer, but also where the counterparty is giving a lot of red line on standard terms that the customer's generating. So let me just share some screens which are done here. So at the heart of the system, essentially, is a playbook, and we can launch this playbook in Microsoft Word or in the Word app. And once a contract's launched, the playbook will display some of the sort of key areas that a customer would like to negotiate or understand in the contract. And the playbook is very customizable. It can be as simple or it can be as complex as a customer wants. And the playbook not only allows the contract to be reviewed, but it gives a whole lot of tools around the guidance and the possible actions around each clause. Now, as you'll see here, the playbook has a traffic light system. So red for obvious red flags, green for it's okay, and amber for you need to review it more. And also we have a number of items where the customer says, don't give us a specific rule. We just want a basic summary of what's in the clause. And so one of the key things you can then go into each issue, and instead of just pulling out the clause, extracting it, what we seek to do is give summaries, which we've done here, for example, on a force majeure clause, and highlight some of the key issues.
And I noticed it says pandemics not included.
Yeah, so this will be very familiar. So this checklist was, had a slight COVID, tinge. So to give you an example of the sort of things that we can get into. So we're not just extracting the clause and letting the user take over. So, we'll summarize, we'll give an overview of the issue, and then we allow the user to go through and action it. So, for example, they can input standard language or curated language that is already in the system, their preferred drafting on a particular type of clause, in this case as an indemnity. And the other thing that we can do is pull out all of the precedent clauses on this particular issue through the portfolio of contracts that the customer has already signed. So you've got basically a toolkit with possible responses on the issue. And then what the system will do is it will take that drafting and it will align it to what's in the draft contract under review. So you don't have to change, for example, all the definitions, defined terms. That will all be done automatically. So it allows a very sort of fast way of remediating contracts, or the boilerplate in contracts, using the text editing features that are already embedded in Microsoft Word. So this checklist will sit alongside the Microsoft Word document in a Microsoft Word view, and it will also automatically extract the contract from a document management system. So such as SharePoint or other document management systems, it will automatically sync with those systems. So another feature that customers use quite often is you can create an automated but amendable report on the contract. So you'll see here that we've pulled out all of the issues on our checklist. You get a summary, you pull out the clause references, you get an overview of the issue, and you get a risk scoring. And so this can be used as an internal risk report on the contract, or can be easily configured so that it can be, go to the counterparty as a sort of issues list or deviations list. So you see there's flexibility in the way contracts can be actioned, either by way of report, issues list, or by an amended contract. So the other sort of features that we have is that we have workflow features that will allow legal colleagues to be alerted if certain red flags appear, or senior colleagues to be alerted, or in some cases we allow for automated approvals of contracts if they comply with the customer's business rules. The other thing that we do allow is for a sort of very visualized reporting across the portfolio of contracts, allowing people to sort of see the overall risk and how the portfolio is performing, either before the contracts are negotiated, executed, or thereafter. And all of this is sort of presented in quite a visual fashion. So I think one of the sort of key things that excites us is how the technology could be used. So obviously it's intended to speed up the response, but I think also it can fundamentally change the way contracts are processed within companies. So for example, instead of the old system where a lot of contracts being stuck in legal for review, a business manager, a contract manager can do most of the negotiation using the system, negotiating with the counterparty, and perhaps just go to the legal colleagues for some of the 2 or 3 really key points that add value on the contract. So that's quite an exciting development. We call this business self-service. It's empowering business teams to own their contracts, reserving legal for things that really do justice to their training. The other thing that we can use the technology for, is we can triage contracts, send them down the right track. I've mentioned automated, approvals. And then the final thing that we work with customers is, once all this data is stored in the system, we can analyze it. So once the contract's signed, we can then set up contract management tools. So for example, we can flag what are the key obligations, key reporting, when renewals are due. So you're providing the same features that a lot of standalone contract management systems give, but actually it exists in the customer's existing document management system, and we're just providing the data insights and quality of information.